Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'da, habita fillah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyakum Allah. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, accepts our good and forgives our evil, protects us from kulli su' wa makruh, blesses us with ikhlas, with thabat ala sunnat nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us all of our many sins, raise us up amongst the ranks of the righteous, and have mercy upon our souls. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favor us all with His favors and help us to go forward and be better slaves of His and rectify our condition and affairs. Ahabati fillah. As there was a question about burnout, and I've actually done a separate video, but I just wanted to sari'an and just open it up for general questions in general. Talk about the importance of being steadfast and seeking knowledge, and that also realizing we're human beings and you will burn out, and that's going to depend on the person, but everyone's different. Some people, there are many of us who burn out. We need a break. And I understand that that seems contradictory, but in general, when you have a lot of people trying to engage in an activity like seeking knowledge, not everyone is the same. People tafawat. Ahl sunnah tafawat, ahl bid'ah tafawat. People have different levels. The people of bid'ah, they have different levels of deviation. The people of sunnah have different levels of their adherence to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when you are seeking Islamic knowledge, there are times you may become tired. And yes, you should power through that. It's going to depend at your lifestyle, your family commitment, your job obligations. If you are a student who is making tafarrug, that their job is only to seek knowledge, it's different than the person who is a husband and he has many children, or a husband to several wives and has many responsibilities. His lifestyle is very different than the one who's single. So it's very important to realize your level of commitment, of what you can be committed to, and strive to be steadfast as much as possible. And so some of the ways that I identified to prevent burnout, for one, as some of our scholars mentioned, and this is about traversing the path of knowledge in general, and that's adam inkita, that you should strive your best to be consistent in your path. So even, it's not about taking lots of knowledge in at once, having seven lectures, 7 different scholars, 3 different books you're doing at once. It's not about that, because as some of the Salaf used to mention, that whoever man akhadha ilm jumlatin dhahaba jumlatin, or kama qil, that whoever takes knowledge in big chunks, it takes knowledge, a lot of knowledge in at once, a lot of knowledge leaves at once. So you can overburden yourself. So you want to take something, when you're seeking knowledge, you want to do that which you can be consistent with. Of course, in the path of seeking knowledge, you want to have sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you want to make sure you're taking beneficial knowledge, ilm nafi', beneficial knowledge based on the book and the sunnah from Ahlus Sunnah. From Ahlus Sunnah, not from the people of bid'ah and desires. Even if they have good programs, even if they're well organized, even if they have, nice programs, it's better to be far from them and be with Ahlus Sunnah, even if they have little. Because to be grounded on the Sunnah with a little bit is much better than to be have lots of bid'ah, okay, and lots of errors and mistakes to correct in your creed, in your practice, and so on and so forth. So it's so important where you're taking your knowledge from. But getting back to the main topic, another piece of advice is you want to have outlets. And I just finished explaining this, but you want to have ways, things that you enjoy so you don't get burned out. You need an outlet. For some people, that outlet can be, what we find from a lot of our scholars. Of course, they have family time and they do things like this, but probably very little. Most of the scholars that I know, I don't, because if you're teaching 5-6 days a week, it's hard to imagine. Even I know a lot of scholars, they have 2 wives. So I think their wives are just accustomed and know that, hey, My husband, this is what he does. He teaches people and he travels around the world and he's a professor at the university, and that's his life. And I'm a part of that. And so they don't impair that. So it's hard to have that perfect balance. And I don't think it's really possible, but I think everyone has to strive to make their balance. So what I find and what I understand from many of my scholars is that if they are not reading and revising and teaching, it's in their ibadah. So they're finding their sweetness in the ibadah, For us, many of us, we have different lifestyles. I know myself. I can't speak about you, this one or this one, but I know myself and my background that for me, that is the kind of person I am. I'm a person who needs balance. I need the physical, mental, and spiritual balance. I can read a book or read in topics that may not be Sharia-based topics. I might need to break it up. I like to find out occasionally what's going on in the world, what's the news, what's the latest and the greatest, okay? In political science, because that's my background. So I like to know, hey, what's going on in, the Ukrainians are still doing this. Oh, this is going on in Turkey. Oh, I like to feed it. Oh, what's going on in Philistine right now? What have the Yahud done to my brothers and sisters there today? So I like to kind of know what's going on in the world. What's going on in Africa? Oh, Ethiopia is having this issue. So that's a part of my mental a different stimulation, something I enjoy. I also like to exercise. For me, that's important. That's a part of my life, even though I'm not doing it now. But it is something that physical. I like to hike. I like to bike. I like to, be physical, those physical activities. So that is important for me to break it up. If I am feeling overwhelmed or I just don't feel like going into the books, I don't want to just sit in my mektaba 24/7 7 days a week, although that wouldn't be a bad lifestyle. I could do push-ups in there, but so you need to break it up. You need to find an outlet. You need to find a physical outlet for those people who are into physical activities. Or some other people, maybe they have a craft. They're good at woodwork. They're good at sewing. They're good at knitting. They're good at something. You need that. You need to break it up, okay? And that's what we find for many of us, I think, as Westerners especially, and others exposed to many different activities and ways of life, that we find we may need that more so than others, okay? So it's very important to find whatever your outlet. You need an outlet. You need to break out. If you like to go fishing, go fishing. If you want to go hiking in the woods, go hiking in the woods. You want to go in the mountains, whatever the case may be. You want to go shopping at the mall, if that's what you do and that's what you enjoy, and you're a person who likes clothing and stuff like that, then, do what you need to do, but just keep everything as Islamic as possible and as halal as possible. Don't be wasteful and, don't go beyond the bounds with whatever it is. It could happen in hiking. It could happen in the mall. Whatever you're doing, you want to be halal. Okay. So you need to find an outlet, a physical outlet or whatever kind of outlet. Also, something to help you. This will help you in your seeking knowledge, and it will help you with, and not becoming burned out. Husn suhbah. Having good, righteous companions, especially good, righteous companions that are on the path of ilm with you. They're on the path of knowledge with you, so they can help you, can bounce off masail. Most of my friends that are my Muslim companions, honestly, all of them are probably students of knowledge or have done some talib al-ilm in one way or another. I don't really have anybody who's closer to me to an extent. Yeah, I would say, at least most, I would say, are at least, they're students of knowledge, meaning they've traveled to go study, or they are people who are inclined, they're on the sunnah, and they are people who are inclined on the sunnah. When we talk, it's always, it's always about the deen, pretty much. It might be other things, but that's the crux, that's the bottom line. It's going to be, issues. Oh, what do you think about this? Did you hear about Sheikh so-and-so? Did you hear this? What about this mas'ala? It's going to be something deeny and something which is good. Can I make Qiyam al-Layl at such and such time? What's the best time for Qiyam al-Layl? I heard this in a lecture. What do you think about, it's always deen related. And that's important. Husn suhbah, righteous companions, can help you from getting bored, and it can help you challenge and have races even, if you find that with your companion, races in attaining knowledge. Not to want bad for your person, but it's a good race. It's a good challenge. You are in competition with one another in a good way. So there's no problem with that. So this is also khair. So you want to have people who are good for you on this path of knowledge, that they encourage you, they inspire you, they challenge you. Husn suhbah, it's very important. Those are just some of the things that I can see, is that sometimes you just need to take a break, or you need to at least balance your life. And for me, it's about a balance. For example, yesterday, actually, I think at work, I had to prepare the khutbah anyway, so I was busy with that. And then later, I didn't really want to look at any of the books or any things I downloaded and stuff. So that was finished. The rest of the day, I didn't do any studies. I didn't read anything. This was a good week for me. That was good at reading. I did some reading at work when I had the time, or when I can make time, reading some lectures and things that I want to do later for you, with you, and Al-Athari and things like this. So it was a fairly productive week. So you need to have anyhow, ala kulli hal is what I'm trying to say, is that you want to have that balance. And everyone's balance is different. Some people, they need that physical outlet. It might be on the box and bag. It might be, like we said, some people are joggers, some people are athletic, some people love the treadmill, some people like their bikes, some people ride horses, if they have horses or the access. Some people love guns. Okay, go shooting if that's what it is, or bows and arrows. I mean, we can do that in America. I'm not encouraging you to do that in the UK or Canada or some of these other, or in Europe and Sweden or something. We can do that in America, so that's how we do it. And so you need to have those outlets, those positive outlets, and maybe hobbies and things to break up your seeking knowledge. And a last point, and as I kind of alluded to before, as a lot of the scholars that I've seen, I believe, because you don't see this ibadah, except for I would see, there's a lot of my mashayikh, the ones that had the ability, and I especially can remember 3 mashayikh especially, aside from the ones that teach in the haram, like Sheikh Sulaiman al-Rahili, Sheikh Ibrahim Rahili, Sheikh Salih Suhaimi, of course, he was in the haram, he taught in there, Sheikh Ali Nasir Fiqhi. Many mashayikh, you would see them visiting and in the haram often, even if they weren't teaching in there. So you would see them, you might run into them, even out of thousands of people, you might see them in the haram, okay, praying. So for them, their ibadah is that sweetness. So for some people, and we want to encourage us all to be that, but we may not all be on that level. We may need that physical outlet, but you'll see that sometimes from the scholars. You'll see that they, and so some people, they really get their ladha, they get their sweetness. Their outlet is actually to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more, to establish and cry to Allah Azza wa Jal, and establish their ties and their connection and their communication with the Lord Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So some people are like that, and that's how we want to be. But since we tafawud, we have different levels. Some of us need to balance it in a different way. We need that physical. My body might scream at me and say, hey, you need to just run. Just take off running. You need to run on the mountain. That would be fun. Or let's, say people are different, And those are just some things I wanted to mention as far as getting bored while seeking knowledge. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. So now we'll see if there's any questions, and especially questions that are relevant. Bi-idhnillah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with ikhlas, with abad and success and tawfiq. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. How should one remain firm when alone upon the sunnah, even though you may have family, but you feel alone, and sometimes literally alone, no friends, etc.? I say in that situation, sometimes you may need to be in a better environment. That if it's not in your local environment, a person like that may consider moving, if they have the ability, overseas. That's going to depend, also depending on their age and things like this. Also, marriage is very important, that you have a partner that is on the same wavelength and helping you in your deen, that you help one another and strengthen one another in your Islam. So that's another thing, is marriage, if the person is marriageable, and if not, and if they're unable to move and they're unable to travel, then it's going to be about patience. And the reality is, as we've talked about it, and we're really late in the game in a sense, is cyber communities. This is the reality. How many forums, how many WhatsApp groups, people have asked me to join such and such WhatsApp group, which is on the Sunnah or Salafees, and this Telegram group and this group. And I don't like those groups really, because I see sometimes there's a lot of, for me, I see some negativity. I'm not discouraging people, but sometimes it may be those social media connections. I prefer other connections. I have enough WhatsApp groups. I have enough connections. I don't want really any more. If I choose to join one with the scholars, or at least, ways I can communicate with scholars or something. I don't really have time to see the latest thing and then get involved in stuff, because a lot of times you may find fitna. But like I said, if you're in a locality and you have no one who is like-minded, who has the same aqidah, the same methodology or something as you, then you want to, maybe through cyber communication, because this is how whole communities are established now. People are established. This is the reality. This is that social media connection, those forums, those interactions, those new platforms. So those are real. And so that may be a person may be in that situation. Maybe that's a better scenario and situation for them. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala knows best. No. How does one build resilience and get back up when failing to attain what they want? This could be general and when seeking knowledge. So I just did another video that I'll be uploading if I can, but I have slow internet in this place, out in this locality. But that one of the things that I just did an extensive video about is your mental preparedness. That you really have to, we underestimate, or we belittle and don't look at the value of our mentality. Mentality is so important. Mentality is so important. And I'm learning so much by studying and seeing and intermixing with people who are incarcerated, okay? That mentality is so important. Some people, they mentally are in a prison and they might be outside. They can't get over things because they have imprisoned themselves. It could have been their background, could be many things that affect their mentality, but it's the mental state. Some people, they are more they are just movers and shakers, okay? And Allah has favored them with that type of motivation. Motivation is so important, that you to self-motivate and get motivated from others as well. That you cannot, the mentality can destroy you. Your mentality, if you are negative, a negative mentality, that can be your destruction, because it can destroy you with regards to your worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with regards to your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you're negative, that means generally it's very difficult to have a strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and and husn al-dhan billah. If you're negative, to have a good view of your Lord and you're negative. If you are negative, it's going to transfer in how you see your Lord as well. Because how can someone who is depressing themselves, who's imprisoning their mindset, imprisoning their spirituality, you're not going to be motivated to do anything with negativity. Negativity is going to destroy you in so many ways. Wow, this is such a huge topic, because I'm thinking of so many things, even this week, so many things, so many deep things, due to this, it comes down to how you think of things, how you reflect on things. The people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favors to be movers and shakers, they are people who overcome things. When a challenge comes, they go over it. Most of us, when a challenge comes, we go to the side and we just kind of, well, I can't, or we just go backwards. Some people go backwards. Oh, this is in front of me. I'll go back. I can't do it. Oh, it's because of this. It's this, it's that. But those movers and shakers, they are the ones who go over obstacles and they achieve. So you have to have that positive mental attitude and put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawakkal ala Allah wa fi'l, i'timad ala Allah wa fi'l asbab. That you make efforts to attain the goals and the things you want to achieve, and you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to be an engineer, okay. Software engineer, okay. Social media engineer, social media marketer, whatever the case it is, then nothing's holding you back, bi'idnillah. As the Prophet ﷺ said, لو اجتمعت أن ينفعوك بشيء لم ينفعوك إلا بشيء قد كتبه الله تعالى لك. That if the nations gather together to give you something, to help you and benefit you with something, they can't do it unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written that for you. So having a positive mental attitude is a part of that equation, and then putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's only going to happen with Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. But with you being negative and putting obstacles and letting obstacles destroy you, then you'll be destroyed. SubhanAllah, I see this so daily. I see this in my work, and it's powerful when you see the difference in individuals who have sometimes similar backgrounds. I've met people who, SubhanAllah, they've been doing drugs since they were 12 and stuff like that. I was playing with Star Wars figures. I can't imagine, being on meth at 13 or, some crazy stuff like this, and the things that people have happened in their households, broken to pieces, having family betray you. I was talking to an individual yesterday, and he was telling me about how his blood brother, was killed, but his blood brother became like his enemy because he was with people who wanted to harm him. With gangs and stuff like that. This is just, it's unbelievable. Islam is such a ni'mah if we hold on to the Islamic principles. But you have to hold on to Islamic principles. I know I've got off on a tangent, but I'm giving you a little broadness here. Because, of course, we have those people who are Muslim, but they're one foot in the dunya, one foot in their Islam. They may come to the masjid, but they're crypts, they're bloods, they're BGDs. I mean, we have this in America, and some, they're in gangs, they're in Somali gangs, they're in Ethiopian gangs, East African gangs, Cham gangs. Some people are like that, but they're actually Muslim, So they're in a dangerous state because they're one foot in, one foot out, okay? But the stronger your Islam is, it really raises you above a lot of that crazy stuff. It helps you to navigate in the dunya and how you deal with people, to not cut your parents off, even if your parents can, you have evil parents. I talk to people who, they tell me some of the things their parents have done to them, and subhanAllah, But Islam gives us a way and a means and a solution on how to deal and cope with those things, shar'an, how to be on the higher level, shar'an. And that's going to help you navigate through those things in life. So I know we went off a little bit on a tangent, but subhanAllah, it's amazing. So we really have to strive our best to try to be positive, to overcome, and get back up. You have to be a self-motivator. Sometimes I talk to myself and say, no, let's get back on track. I'm not going to defeat. How many times, even with Athari, okay, finally launching, did I say, well, it's probably not going to work. I guess I'll give up. Just do this. Nobody's interested. Well, now, alhamdulillah, more and more people, slowly but surely, are getting involved. So now I got to step up my game, and I will renew it. And, maybe I'll do a fundraiser for students or, whatever. Even I just had some inmates recently who said they want to study, and I thought, subhanAllah, I should have a correspondence aspect of Athari. So I got to figure out how I can get that legitimized where they can do it in prisons. And if I could get that, that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. So you've got to think outside the box, and you've got to not let those negative. You've got to try. As my mother always says, that nothing defeats a a negative except for a try or something. Nothing defeats a failure except for the one who makes effort, more or less. And this is like an Islamic principle that you have to strive. You have to, how are you going to, be a better mu'min except through trying, trial and error. And the Prophet ﷺ made a similitude. The mu'min is the one like when the wind is blowing, that they can sway with it because they're going to get moved, but they're still like a planted strong tree. But the one who's weak or on disbelief, that they'll just snap and change up and they're just with the wind. But the mu'min is grounded. He or she is grounded in their deen. And to be grounded in your deen, you're going to have to pick yourself up. You're going to have to be positive. Being positive is so important. And I know everyone's different in their mental state. Some people struggle from really mental illness. I've dealt with individuals, brothers and sisters who struggled with mental illness. And that's something totally different, that they may need additional help. But it boils down in some aspects to negativity regarding even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they don't have that positive. You've got to have that positive, that even though you messed up, read those narrations about your punishment and about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said, لَمَا قَدَ اللَّهُ خَلْقٍ كتب في كتابي على نفسي فهو موضوع عنده إن رحمتي تغلب غضبي. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote in a book about himself subhanahu wa ta'ala, Inna rahmati taghlibu ghaddibi. Verily my mercy supersedes my wrath. And we surely need mercy because we screw up daily. We screw up all the time, sins and things like this. So we need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. So I don't say you only depend on mercy and you continue doing sin as the Murji'ah say, but rather we need that mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we also have to realize that Allah tabaraka ta'ala punishes. So you should be fearful of his torment, but also realize that he is the most merciful as well. And that you should always, even if you had a whole night full of sin, now it's a new day. Get up, strive and make tawbah and make it a positive day and go forward. That is resilience. That's that resilience you were talking about. And not many people have that, okay? So we don't want to be oblivious to the sins that we're doing, but we don't want to let those things cripple us and hold us back. We need to stand up and go forward. May Allah tabaraka ta'ala bless us with success. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Is it from the correct manners when you owe someone an explanation, but to avoid a pain or disappointment to them, you keep silent or do not address the issue and hope it goes away? Is it from the correct manners? You can do this, that's going to depend on the situation, the scenario. It's going to depend on the scenario. It's going to depend on who you're talking to. Is it dealing with parents? Is it dealing with a spouse? Is it going to, because that communication is important too. But however, sometimes it may be from fiqh to keep silent or, postpone it and address it another way. And sometimes it may be from fiqh to deal with it right now. So there's no black and white answer there. It's going to depend on the situation. It's going to depend on the issue. What you asked was something very general and vague. And so that's going to depend upon the scenario and who you're dealing with. So it can be from, fiqh and understanding to not harm them, not harm their feelings, or it could be better sometimes to present something to them in a gentle way. It's going to depend on the situation. So again, like I said, that's very general. Is it but hoping that something goes away, that's not the best way to address problems. Okay, and Allah knows best. Is it permissible to listen to Salafi poetry that has been recited? Yes, you can listen to poetry. As long as it's not something haram. As long as you're listening to something haram. So it doesn't necessarily have to be Salafi. It doesn't even have to be deen. But as long as it's something positive and something which is good, okay, you can listen to poetry. Will Allah forgive someone who has wronged many people either by taking their rights or possessions unjustly and unlawfully? For example, he dies without reconciling with the people he wronged. Allah knows best. If Allah wills, He will punish them, and if Allah wills, He will forgive them. But what we know in general is you don't want to die with the rights of the people and not reconciling. So sometimes people oppress people through backbiting and so forth. Even between scholars sometimes, I can think of certain, in the past 2 years, different scholars that died who had issues with one another, and, maybe there was some oppression in there. So they're going to be, their reckoning is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They may get from the good, take from the hasanat of that scholar because of what he said, which was untrue about him. Okay. So those kind of things, those taking the rights of people is very serious. So only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And what we know from the book and the sunnah is that, it will take from the hasanat, take from the good deeds of a person. If they oppressed and, ظَلَمَ هَذَا وَشَتَمَ هَذَا, he cursed this one and he oppressed this one, he's going to be in trouble. Those are the muflisin, as the Prophet ﷺ described them. That's the muflis. That's the one who's bankrupt, because they're bankrupt in their deeds. They cursed this one, they backbited this one, they lied about this one, they slandered this one. So in the end, it's taken from their good deeds. Naam. Again, Allah knows, but certain sins we know are punished in the graves. Only Allah Tabaraka Ta'ala knows that. But again, it's very serious. And we just mentioned, some of those issues related to that. May Allah protect us. Now, should a student of knowledge who plans on going to study in Medina have a plan B, like after he's done with his studies, returns to his country? Should he pursue a job? Or I think it's a good idea to think about that. There's nothing wrong with thinking about the future, because I know a lot of people who didn't. And the reality on the ground, I know a lot of graduates, and they were like, no, I don't want to be an imam, or they tried being an imam for a while, and they didn't like the control. There was many issues. There was, a contradiction in values from the board. So there's a lot of issues. So I absolutely believe, any way you can be independent, if you can be a business person, or if you go to college too, you go to university, if you're an imam, or, whatever you decide to do, this is khair. This is khair. As long as it's halal and you have a way to provide for yourself, to be financially independent is great, because finances are just so important. We can't neglect the fact that we need either others to support us, or we need to support ourselves, okay? Or both. And so finances are so important. They are so important. We could do a whole lecture about economics, microeconomics, and the issues that we have in balancing our home budgets and all the pressures in society, and what it takes to make and what it takes to do da'wah. How many students of knowledge do I know personally that they studied in Yemen, they studied in Saudi, and they don't have time, because they're so caught up in doing jobs that might be meaningless, that take them away from da'wah, that it really affects their da'wah and what they can do. So, so I absolutely encourage you to think about both those things now. About the idea to send out quick newsletters shortly before a live starts. No, that's an excellent, that's an excellent idea. It's just I haven't balanced my own time. My time is chaotic right now. And I'm just in such a time of unsettledness as far as my job, my employment, where I'm going to live. And so I absolutely believe what you're saying it's absolutely true to have that. I should be doing that, but it's just my life is a little bit chaotic right now. So I hope in the future to be a little more organized, and to be able to, do a flyer, do an advertisement, so people know when I'm going to do a dars or do something. How do we combine this with the fact that there is such a thing as asexual reproduction? I can't say, because the Arabic is ومن كل شيء خلقنا زوجين لعلكم تذكرون. How do we combine this with the fact that there is such a thing as asexual reproduction? I don't know. I don't know. Frogs and the creatures that do that, just know that there's no contradiction as far as the Book of Allah and the Sunnah, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I can't really tell you about the science of that reproduction and reconciling it with ayat. Allah knows best. But don't let that, don't overthink things and allow scientific theories and things like this to affect and destroy your belief. Know that there's a husna ta'wil, that there is a good ta'wil for something that is established in science, that it's not going to contradict the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we only have limited knowledge of this creation. May Allah grant us positive insight. Ameen. That is beautiful, establish an idea, keep it up, and patience. Better slow start. Yes, Jazakallah khairan. Ustad Abdurrahman Hassan has a great series called 10 Ways to Increase Motivation. Ustad, was Ibn Taymiyyah a mujtahid mutlaq? Allahu alam. You know, he was, Allahu alam, those categories and so forth, but he was known as like a mujaddid and a mujtahid and Shaykh al-Islam. Just the laqab Shaykh al-Islam was not something given to him lightly and from just a few people, you know. So, what do you think about people who gather to sing nasheed about Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam all day long, cry and venerate excessively with emotions? I think you know what I think about this, that this is bid'ah, and it can lead to for some of the people kufr, because maybe they are supplicating to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. They're already in extremism, they're already going beyond the bounds. So it's going to depend on what their i'tiqad is and what their mu'amalat is. Have they reached the level of disbelief, or are they in just a bid'ah ghayr mukaffara? So that's going to depend upon the activity of the person. So it's all mathmoom. So of course we don't support it and we don't agree with it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all. I mean, do you hold covering the face and hands to be fard for a woman? I don't know if it's important what I believe. It's more important what you believe, what you studied, and with regards to this mas'ala. So my view in my limited studies and really going into the mas'ala is that I hold the view of Imam Al-Albani that it is mustahab, that it's not an obligation. So I would not, for me, then I would not, although I kind of prefer for my, wives or daughters and things and so forth to have niqab, but I'm not mutashaddid on that any longer. My view has changed, especially being back in America and where I'm living now and so forth. And Allah Tabaraka Ta'ala knows best. So I believe when it's the scholars, it is a valid opinion. Some scholars, if you ask some scholars, and many of my scholars, if you ask them, they will say, no, there's no valid opinion. Khalas, this is a khata. They will say it's a mistake or what have you. So I would advise you to go with the scholarly opinion, and more importantly, to study the mas'ala and understand why there's a difference of opinion if you can, and if you don't have that qudra, then, taking the view of one of the scholars that you trust, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Can you talk about your work with convicts? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything specific, but anyway, I learn a lot from people who are incarcerated, that they're people like you and I. Some of the people, they just made mistakes, serious mistakes. And this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning of your mentality. Because when I'm looking at local crimes here, when I see, just reading the paper, I think I read something, today I went to the mechanic and there was a newspaper, and I was just looking at the local things happening around here. A kid, he tried to hold up one of the gas stations, which I go to fill up my gas at. And he didn't have a gun, but he tried to make the cashier, and the cashier stood their ground and looked at him, and then he ran out. So they got it all on camera. Now he's getting a major, maybe I'll see him. He's considered a felon. Young 19-year-old. What in the world? This is mentality. What is driving you? Did you need money? They said they had $8 in the register. So now your life is totally jammed up, totally altered. And, you've just cut off a lot of potential. You're going to prison, or you're going to prison. And you're a 19-year-old over the most stupidest stuff and you didn't get any money. Look at this. Or some of these kids, they're shooting people. They are, you know, I just saw where the white supremacist, he killed 10 black people in Buffalo, New York. Now he's remorseful. He's sad. He's actually cried in the courtroom. Some of the people say, we're going to pray for you. You know, they're forgiving Christians or what have you. And some of the people were cursing him and wanted to knock his head off. And so this kid, he's got life in prison now. So he didn't get the death penalty, life in prison over internet dawah to evil and hatred and racism. So many people, they make these decisions, and especially when they're young, you know, they say that the brain now, you know, for men only begins to fully develop, I think, after in their mid-20s. So they're not really mature, a 21-year-old, 22, 23. They still haven't, and you're seeing this nowadays even more so with the way that some of the young people are thinking and doing and the crimes they're committing. You know, so many people, their mentality, oh, I just didn't feel like studying. Oh, I talked to somebody recently and I was asking him, I said, so yeah, what are you gonna do when you get out, man? What's happening? And he said, you know, if I'm gonna be on parole, he said, I'm not listening to what they say. I said, and he said, so I'll be back. And I said, what is wrong? I said, so you enjoy walking around here with a whole bunch of dudes. You will never be with a woman. This is more pleasurable to you with all these men, you know, instead of ever, you know, holding a woman and having that delight again, you know, in a marital bond or what have you. This is better to wake up with a bunch of dudes and they're telling you when you can eat, when to sleep, when you're going to have recreation time. No, they decided to shut it down. Oh, they found drugs, they found knives, they found this. Now everything's shut down. That is a better life than your freedom. I said, man, the world, and it was so good. He listened to me for like 20 minutes. And this is a hard head guy, hard head. But I was surprised. I hit him this week. I hit him hard with just, you know, like, listen, travel, go, get off paper and travel. You're not selling out because you listen to a parole officer. Keep your nose clean and then have your freedom. Do whatever you want. Go. Do you have children? Yes. I don't need to see them. I was like, why did you know, so it's mentality. And he's a classic example. This guy is a classic example. Violence. He just gets in violence, gets in fights, gets beat up or beats up, drugs, you know, all this crazy stuff. A lot of it is here. And he's the smartest guy. This guy is smart. As when he doesn't have his high school, but he can kill that exam. If you can keep the guy, he said, I'm not gonna have good conduct for very long. So I want to take this test before I get, you know, basically either from drugs or fighting or something. And you know, so it's mentality. So that's one thing I would say is work on your mentality, because a lot of people, they have imprisoned themselves in their mind. Even if they're out of prison or if they're in prison, which is worse, they have locked themselves up with their mentality. And then we got on this, and then I said, you know, faith. I started mentioning have faith. You know, I didn't hit him. I didn't say, you know, Islam or anything like that. He knows I'm a Muslim and stuff, because I didn't want him to say anything negative about Islam. And he's just like, no, faith in what? You know, faith is this, and, you know, it's just, you sell faith. And I was like, well, you know, you have your belief and this and that and the other, but, you know, so anyway, I tried to hit him up. But what amazed me is he did listen to me for a change. So that was a positive thing. So again, you know, there's a lack of faith in the societies that's growing, and there's a lack of, you know, any kind of positive, you know, and I understand certain people have had negative lives. If you come from a broken home where your father was a drug dealer, I mean, we have some people, I see some people, they're generational prisoners. I was talking to a person of authority, and he was mentioning about how he's had once where the grandfather, the father, and the son were all in the same facility, in the same prison. And then because the grandfather was, he had, akramakum Allah, he was a pedophile, meaning he did bad things to children, the father and the son conspired and had other inmates beat up the grandfather. This is it's just such a bizarre world. So, a lot of that, mentality is so important. That's your survival mechanism. And then I see some people who are so smart, and I know when they get out, bi'idhnillah, they'll be successful. But they may need deen, obviously. I know some guys, they're atheists, they're Wiccans, they're pagans. And so I'll give them some dawah and say, hey, listen, get on Islam, the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be thankful. Look at, you found all this positive, and I know you're a smart guy, and I know you're going to do positive things. You need to, let's take it to the next level. Come to Islam, or at least learn more about Islam. Learn about the oneness of your creator. He's the one who blessed you with these skills. Don't think you just came up with this and you have this insight, you have this, Allah has favored you with so much, but you deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's just amazing. You really meet a lot of different people with a lot of different mentalities and a lot of different beliefs, and the need for people's guidance. And that just affirms for me the importance of holding on to your Islam. Hold on to your Islam. Subhanallah. La ilaha illallah. Are you aware of the reports which mention that Iblis was an angel different to the ones that don't disobey? No, I've never ever heard anything like that. Reports, and then you have to look at, if they're reports, what is their authenticity? Because we know from the Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah that Iblis was a jinn. Not my question, but a doubt. A person came to me with my coffee. I only have a little coffee. I'm going to try to make another cup. Is it okay to call your cat a Muslim name like Maryam or Abdullahi with evidence? Is it okay? I don't know. I think Allah knows best. It's just, of course, Muslims are going to probably give their animals Muslim names that are common in their society, but just, yeah, especially high names like, now names that denote Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Abdullah and stuff. No, I don't think this is good. This is, but you could ask a scholar if you wish, if you think that's an important question. But I would avoid that totally, given that takreem, this level of sharf, and to an animal, to your pet lizard. You have a gecko or something, and you're calling him. No, I don't. And Allah knows best. I think it's better to avoid that, but. Can you explain the view of those ulama who say the hellfire is not forever? What is the evidence they use? It's wrong. It's a mistake. So I can't explain their view. But you could go into the mas'ala and look at it, but that would take a research, because I'm more concerned, when you go into those kind of very intricate details like that, of knowing the arguments of Ahl Bid'ah, or knowing the arguments of those who are mukhalif in an issue, then that takes the research of going into that. Okay, so I don't know what their hujjah is. I could easily find out if I sat down and went to the books, but yeah, I don't know. I have a question regarding, I think it's Ashari Aqeedah you're trying to say. My father and my sheikh, who is my father-in-law, teach Ashari madhab, and they teach from books which are Ashari. Should I send my son? I don't think so. Don't. Because, no. And I know some people from Ahl Sunnah, they like Darul Ulum because of the organization, and they go through a lot of different books and stuff. No. N-O. Don't do it. No. So what I would advise you is, get your son in a Quran program or something, tahfidh and sunnah. But as far as learning, depends on their age. If you can, if they're getting older to where, they're finishing high school, then send them to an Islamic university in the in the land of Tawheed in Saudi or something. Or, maybe you can find a teacher or find a program. Again, Ahl Sunnah is advancing programs. I'd rather you send them to Abdurrahman Hassan's program or one of the programs that are out there, but those might be not for children so much, but, hopefully we can develop programs for children online, but that would be much better because of being away from misguidance. No way, don't send them, because how are you going to correct their aqidah then and their methodology? Should one place their hands or knees down first? This is a very a very, I guess you could say, an intricate detail or an intricate mas'ala with a lot of khilaf and a lot of differences, of what it means to prostrate like the dog, as the Prophet ﷺ forbade. So, if you can prostrate first on your knees, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, then this would be better. But if not, because a lot of us are legs, we've been sitting, it's very difficult to do that. So, Allah knows best. Allah knows best. But I say you can go into that masala and really study it if you want. Also, can you clear the position of the Maliki and Hanafi? No, I can't. Are they making a mistake, or is this a part of their ijtihad? Even if it's if someone is making a mistake, that's ijtihad, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. That is ijtihad, and there's a reason for praying. For example, the Malikis having I forgot what you call it when they have their sadl. With sadl, these are major masail, and they have all their intricate arguments for that. But going to the clear evidence from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is going to give you, did the Prophet ﷺ do that? And that's what you should always ask yourself. So if you want to go into those masail deeply like that, that's something you sit down, you study, and you study fiqh muqarrana. You go into the different madhabs and what their arguments are and so forth. So that is something which is good. It's an advanced thing, but I wouldn't say, I can't give you any tawjihat on that. Those are issues you study and you do a bahth, you do research to bring about their arguments. If you have the ability, then you could go to books like fiqh, Bidayat al-Mujtahid. You can go to Ibn Qudama's Al-Mughni, okay? And those will give you the intricate details of why the madhabs, what they say in each of those intricate masail, and those are good for the talib al-ilm to know and to go into, just to be grounded in those masail and hear and see the arguments and see where, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, where the haqq is in each of those masail. But, what's more in conformity to the adillah, if they have the qudra to do that, then this is khair. But, yeah. When someone says sallallahu alayhi wasallam or mention the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam or alayhi salatu wasalam, what are the evidence? The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, this is the sunnah of Islam. Okay, so sunnah of Islam, and there is evidence to support that. I can't think of anything right off the get-go, but there is evidence, clear evidence to support that when you hear the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam's name, that you should say sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Also in the Quran, and you hear it also in the ayat that's also mentioned a lot of times in the khutbah, and the imam will recite it. I can't think of the ayat right now, but yeah, there's clear evidence for that, and it's a sunnah of Islam. Can you make dua within the fard, salah, in sujood? Yes, you can. There's nothing prohibiting that, and the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the closest the servant is to his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala is in sujood. So make kathrata dua. I am allowed to ask Allah for janaba. I don't know what you're asking there. Can one cooperate with the Muslims in the community, such as the Deobandis, in matters concerning all of us, such as preserving the Muslim graveyards? Yes. Those are for a greater maslahah for the whole community. So I don't say you go around making enemies of one another. And that's going to depend also on the strength of Ahl Sunnah. If Ahl Sunnah has a lot of wealth and they don't need to, they have the ability, they have their own graveyard and stuff, okay. But otherwise, most of the time that's not the situation. in a non-Muslim land and so forth. So there is levels of cooperation that have to be had for the maslahah of the greater of the whole Muslim community. Do you suggest any Aqeedah books which are available in both English and Arabic? Too many, and I think I've done whole videos about it, and there's a lot of material out there, and I would say go into those, take a look at what's out there, and depends on the science you're trying to study. There's so much material. I'm just amazed. Something I just bought that's in English, because I don't have a lot of English books that I've purchased, but I just purchased this because this will be so beneficial for me. This will be a text I will use in the Athari Institute, and that is Ibana al-Sughra, Al-Ibana al-Sughra, and it's in English and Arabic. It looks like they've done a good translation. I think you can only get it, I bought it off Amazon, so it's really good because that will be a text I will use. Do you suggest we'll ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Almighty to accept our good and forgive our evil? Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.